Chapter 1. The Call of the Abyss.
It began on a dismal evening in late October, as a chill wind swept through the hollow streets of Arkham. I had received a letter from an old colleague, Dr. Nathaniel Pendergast, whose once vigorous correspondence had waned over the years. The letter, hastily scrawled and smeared with ink, invited me to his ancestral manor in Kingsport, a secluded town perched precariously on cliffs overlooking a perpetually tempestuous sea. The missive spoke of a recent archaeological discovery, a set of tablets unearthed in the desolate wastelands of Mongolia, which he claimed predated all known civilizations. There was an urgency to his words, a desperation that bordered on madness. Intrigued and unsettled, I boarded the next train to Kingsport. Unaware of the horrors that awaited me. The train ride itself was uneventful, yet unnerving. The rhythmic clatter of wheels on the tracks seemed to echo in an oddly discordant manner, and the landscapes outside the window grew increasingly desolate. By the time I arrived, the sun had set, leaving Kingsport shrouded in an impenetrable fog. The manor loomed against the night sky, its gables and turrets clawing at the heavens. I was greeted by Pendergast himself, a gaunt figure whose eyes were sunken and wild. His trembling hands grasped my shoulders as he whispered, "You've come just in time. It speaks to me, Alexander. The abyss calls, and I must answer." Despite his frail appearance, he guided me to his study with feverish energy. The room was a chaotic sanctuary of tomes, maps, and artifacts, but my gaze was immediately drawn to a glass case at the center. Inside were the tablets, inscribed with angular, almost otherworldly glyphs that seemed to shimmer in the dim lamplight. "They speak of a god older than time," Pendergast murmured, "a being not of this earth. Its whispers have haunted my dreams since the tablets arrived." I could not help but feel a growing unease as I studied the glyphs. Though I could not read them, they seemed to pulse faintly, as though alive. The air in the room grew heavy, and shadows seemed to move where they should not. That night, I retired to the guest room, though sleep came only in fragments, broken by whispers that seemed to drift through the walls.
Chapter 2. The Tablets of the Unknown.
Pendergast explained that the glyphs defied translation, yet he had somehow deciphered fragments through dreams, visions granted by the entity itself. The inscriptions spoke of a portal beneath the sea, a gateway to a realm beyond comprehension. "You must see," he insisted, pressing an ancient tome into my hands. Its title was in no language I could decipher, but the illustrations within depicted monstrous, tentacled beings and labyrinthine underwater cities. The images, rendered in disturbingly precise detail, seemed to shift and shimmer as I turned the pages. The more he spoke, the more I began to feel the oppressive weight of an unseen presence. The air in the study seemed heavier, and the flickering lamplight cast unsettling shadows on the walls. Pendergast's voice grew erratic, his words dissolving into half-formed thoughts and guttural murmurs. He clutched his head and screamed, "They're here! They're watching us!" The sound of shattering glass snapped me out of my stupor. One of the windows had fractured, though no stone or projectile could be seen. Pendergast collapsed, trembling, as I dragged him to a nearby couch. That night, sleep eluded me, and the whispers he spoke of began to creep into my mind as well. They were faint at first, indistinct murmurs that ebbed and flowed like the tide. By morning, they had grown louder, insistent, tugging at the edges of my sanity.
Chapter 3. The Descent into the Abyss.
Pendergast awoke at dawn, his demeanor oddly calm. He insisted that we journey to the cliffs overlooking the sea, where he believed the gateway lay hidden. As we trekked through the mist-shrouded hills, he shared fragmented stories of those who had sought the portal before us, and the horrors they had unleashed. The path wound through desolate terrain, jagged rocks and gnarled trees that seemed to lean inward as if to obscure the way. At times, I thought I saw movement in the shadows, fleeting shapes that vanished the moment I turned to look. My unease grew with every step, yet Pendergast pressed onward with single-minded determination. When we reached the cliffs, I was struck by the unnatural geometry of the rocks below. They formed jagged, spiraling patterns that defied natural erosion, as if crafted by a hand both meticulous and malevolent. At the base of the largest formation, a yawning cavern gaped like the maw of some colossal beast. "This is it," Pendergast whispered, his voice trembling with a mix of awe and terror. As we descended into the cavern, the air grew colder, and an otherworldly glow emanated from phosphorescent fungi clinging to the walls. The sound of the waves above faded, replaced by an eerie silence, punctuated only by the drip of water and the faint hum of something vast and alive. The cavern walls glistened, as though slick with moisture, yet the texture was strangely organic, pulsating faintly under my touch.
Chapter 4. The Whispering Depths.
The deeper we ventured, the more alien the surroundings became. The walls of the cavern were etched with glyphs identical to those on the tablets, and the air vibrated with a resonance that seemed to bypass the ears and burrow directly into the mind. Pendergast's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He spoke in tongues, his eyes rolling back as he stumbled forward with an almost trance-like determination. I tried to stop him, but an unseen force seemed to draw us deeper, overriding my will. At last, we emerged into a vast subterranean chamber. At its center stood a monolithic structure, a black stone obelisk covered in pulsating veins of an iridescent substance. The hum grew deafening as Pendergast fell to his knees before the obelisk, tears streaming down his face. "It's beautiful," he sobbed. "Do you see it, Alexander? Do you hear its song?" I saw nothing but madness, yet I could not deny the pull of the obelisk. My mind teetered on the edge of comprehension as visions of a vast, writhing entity filled my thoughts. Its form was unknowable, its presence infinite. The chamber itself seemed alive, the walls pulsating with the same iridescent glow as the obelisk. Symbols shifted and reformed as I watched, and the whispers grew into a cacophony that threatened to drive me mad.
Chapter 5. The Unveiling.
As Pendergast reached out to touch the obelisk, a blinding light erupted from its surface. The chamber filled with an ear-splitting roar, and the ground trembled violently. I was thrown backward, my vision swimming, as the walls of the cavern seemed to dissolve into a swirling void. In that moment, I glimpsed the entity, a colossal, tentacled form that writhed in dimensions beyond human perception. Its presence was overwhelming, a tidal wave of dread and awe that threatened to annihilate my very sense of self. Pendergast's screams echoed through the void as the entity's tendrils enveloped him. He was consumed, his form dissolving into the ether as the obelisk absorbed his essence. The pulsating glyphs on its surface brightened, their glow radiating with an almost jubilant intensity. A terrible realization dawned upon me. The entity was awakening. The walls of the chamber began to collapse, the organic textures sloughing away like a decayed husk. The air grew thick and choking as the ground beneath me splintered, threatening to cast me into the abyss. I turned to flee, but the cavern had become a labyrinth, its passages shifting and closing behind me. The void pressed in from all sides, an infinite expanse of darkness, punctuated by flashes of the entity's grotesque form. Its whispers, once indistinct, had grown into a cacophony of commands in an alien tongue, each syllable gnawing at the edges of my sanity. I ran blindly, my heartbeat a deafening drum in my ears, until at last I stumbled through an opening and collapsed on the jagged rocks outside. The storm above raged with unnatural ferocity, the sky a swirling maelstrom of colors that defied earthly explanation. Lightning flashed in erratic patterns, illuminating the churning sea below. I crawled to the cliff's edge and peered down, only to see the water recede, revealing the skeletal remains of an ancient city rising from the depths. The structures were alien in design, their angles and curves defying all laws of geometry. It was then that I realized the truth. The portal was open, and the entity would soon cross into our world.
Chapter 6. The Return.
I stumbled into consciousness hours or perhaps days later, sprawled on the wet rocks at the base of the cliffs. The storm had passed, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. The city beneath the waves was gone, submerged once more, but the memory of its alien spires lingered like a brand upon my mind. Kingsport was a ghost town when I returned. The streets were empty, and the houses stood like hollow shells, their windows gaping like blackened eyes. Even the air felt stagnant, as if the town itself had been drained of life. I made my way to the manor, hoping to retrieve Pendergast's notes and the cursed tablets. Yet when I arrived, the house was in ruins. The roof had caved in, and the walls were scorched as if by some immense heat. Of Pendergast's body, there was no trace, only ash and fragments of the glass case that had once held the tablets. Despair clawed at my chest as I sifted through the debris, uncovering only a single page from his journal. The fragment bore a chilling message, scrawled in his frantic hand. The gate is open. The abyss is eternal. It calls even now. I fled Kingsport that same day, leaving behind the ruins of Pendergast's life and the horrors of the abyss. Yet the entity's whispers followed me, insidious and relentless. They spoke of worlds beyond imagining, of cosmic truths that would shatter the minds of men. Even now, I hear its voice in the dead of night, a low hum that rises with the tides. The tablets may be gone, but their legacy remains. A curse that will haunt me for the rest of my days. The abyss has called to me, and though I have escaped its grasp, I know that I am forever marked, for in the depths of my dreams I see it still, the writhing form, the endless void, and the promise of oblivion. It waits,